Yo, what if Itachi had never been struck by a deadly illness? What if that disease had never weakened him, never slowly destroyed his body? Would the story have unfolded differently? What would have changed the most? That's exactly what I'm going to try to answer right now. Leave a like if you enjoy this kind of content. I really appreciate the support. And now, let's go. Itachi Uchiha is a character that has been discussed countless times on YouTube channels, loved by many, hated by many others. To some, he's a genius and a hero of this world. To others, he's a psychopath who chose the worst possible path, completely shattering his younger brother's mind. All of that while hoping that Madara Uchiha would die to Amaterasu and that Sasuke would one day return to the village as a hero. But to truly understand how the story might have changed if Itachi had been fully healthy, we first need to break down a few key things. First of all, I believe Itachi's original plan was deeply flawed. It relied on an absurd number of lucky coincidences and failed to account for the most important factors in the end. There is absolutely no way to call that plan genius. Breaking his brother mentally, torturing him physically and psychologically, forcing him to relive the massacre of their parents and clan over and over again, pushing him to kill his closest friend just to unlock more power, and driving him out of the village, straight into Orochimaru's hands. The only reason Sasuke survived Orochimaru at all was because of the twisted, obsessive, idealistic mind of the Snake Master himself. And all of this happened because Itachi didn't believe Sasuke could grow strong enough inside the village. He didn't believe Sasuke would survive, and he didn't believe Sasuke would ever understand why he made those choices. In the end, Itachi didn't just destroy Sasuke's psyche when the truth came out, he personally killed him as well. As a result, Sasuke became one of the most dangerous and unstable individuals in the world. He attacked the Hidden Cloud village, nearly started a war, attempted to assassinate the Kage, and even went as far as murdering the future Hokage. Whether you think it was necessary or not doesn't matter, it was still murder. And in the end, it turned out that a simple conversation could have solved everything. So when you really look at it, Itachi, the so-called genius, created a naive, reckless plan full of holes and mistakes. And it failed. But now let's stop for a moment and assume something different. Let's assume that this plan wasn't born out of pure foolishness. What if while still in the village, Itachi had already felt that something was wrong with his body? What if he had been coughing up blood at night, his stamina slowly fading, his strength weakening day by day? Maybe he assumed that if he was going to die anyway, then at the very least, Sasuke should benefit from it. That by unlocking tremendous power through hatred, his little brother would be able to survive in this cruel world. Of course, the core flaw of this plan still remains. Itachi didn't believe in Sasuke's growth, his training, or his potential strength. But in this scenario, at least there was a reason behind it. Now let's take that reason away. What if Itachi had always felt perfectly fine? What if nothing, absolutely nothing, suggested that he was sick? If he knew he could protect Sasuke himself, then there would be no need to put him through such horrors. He would have time to think, time to plan, time to explain everything logically instead of through pain and trauma. And this is where Sasuke's life changes completely. This time his older brother wouldn't wait for him to come home, just to force him to witness the deaths of their parents with his own eyes. Itachi would make sure it hurt as little as possible. There would be no confrontation, no cruel monologue, because at that point talking to Sasuke wouldn't have achieved anything anyway. Of course, Sasuke's life would still be a tragedy. He would still be consumed by hatred toward his brother, but believe me, you don't need excessive torture to create that hatred. By avoiding those extreme measures, Itachi would still do what was necessary to protect the village, and at the same time protect his brother. In the original timeline, he joined the Akatsuki, unlocked the power of his Mangekyo Sharingan, and deliberately stopped training. Why? Because he knew he had to survive as long as possible so that one day his plan could reach its conclusion, a final confrontation with Sasuke. But in this new scenario, that limitation disappears. Now Itachi has motivation to grow stronger because he believes Sasuke might not be able to handle what's coming, and Itachi wouldn't be acting blindly. He would be a direct witness to the true power of the Akatsuki. He would know about the rumored existence of Madara Uchiha, someone believed to be among the top 2 strongest individuals in human history at that time. That alone would mean one thing: both the village and Sasuke were in real danger. Itachi was a combat genius, a prodigy. Even without constant training, his strength was already impressive. But in this version of the story, I firmly believe he could have become at least twice as powerful. With time, he could have increased his chakra reserves, refined his techniques, and carefully prepared plans to stop the Akatsuki before they could destroy the village and attempt to rule the world through fear. Naturally, he would still return to the Leaf Village with Kisame, pretending to infiltrate it in order to capture the Nine Tails. But in reality, his true goal would be different. He would want to see how strong Sasuke had become, to see how he was doing now. And this time, there would be no need for that absurd psychological torture. No need to push Sasuke deeper into hatred. I am absolutely convinced that the sudden massacre of the entire Uchiha clan, Itachi's disappearance from the village, and his joining the world's most dangerous criminal organization would already be more than enough reason for hatred. The same goes for what he did to Kakashi. That endless Tsukuyomi torture, 72 hours of pure psychological hell, was completely unnecessary. It was sick, and it went far beyond even the twisted logic of his Sasuke's original plan, he never needed to do that in order to defeat Kakashi or escape with Kisame, and once again there would be no reason to speak to Sasuke at that moment either. For now it simply wouldn't be necessary, but unfortunately if Itachi wanted to truly spy on the Akatsuki, he would still have to follow their orders. That meant capturing Jinchuriki, taking on assassination contracts, and doing dirty work for money, most of which ended in bloodshed. Reality isn't simple, and it certainly isn't moral. So whether he liked it or not, for the sake of the greater good, for the future of the world, Itachi would still have to become a real villain operating in the shadows. Now the question is, what about Sasuke? Would he eventually come to the same realization as in the original timeline, that his current strength wasn't enough, that he needed more power to take revenge on his brother? Here things get complicated, but the series itself gives us clear clues about what pushed Sasuke down that path. First, Naruto's growth. Naruto's power skyrocketed at an absurd pace, and that terrified Sasuke. Second, the intensification of hatred toward Itachi, hatred that was deliberately provoked, hatred that forced Sasuke to rush, to seek power as fast as possible so he could kill his brother, no matter the cost. In this alternate scenario, if Itachi never confronted Sasuke again, never personally tortured him, never stood before his eyes as a murderer, then Sasuke would never be 100% certain of his brother's guilt. Despite what the village said, despite the official story, there would always be doubt. Deep down, he wouldn't fully believe that someone like Itachi could suddenly commit such a massacre for no reason, and the older Sasuke became, the stronger those doubts would grow. In my opinion, it would be only natural for Itachi to prevent Sasuke from ever joining Orochimaru. First of all, Itachi knew Orochimaru's intentions better than anyone, and second, even in the best case scenario, that path would still end with Sasuke's mind being twisted in one way or another. So what would be the solution? Surprisingly, a very simple one. Look at the bigger picture of Madara, or rather Obito, the one pulling the strings behind the scenes, even controlling pain, was fully aware that Itachi had joined the Akatsuki under specific conditions. One of those conditions was Sasuke's safety. Obito most likely already knew that Sasuke was going to leave the village at some point, and that knowledge alone made him valuable. After all, Sasuke possessed the Sharingan, so ask yourself this, would it ever be in Obito's interest to let Sasuke fall into Orochimaru's hands, risking that a traitor of the Akatsuki and their enemy would gain an even stronger body? Of course not. The most logical move would be to prevent that from happening, which makes the original timeline even more absurd, because letting Sasuke reach Orochimaru in the first place makes no sense. So in this scenario, we have to assume the following. Sasuke would still be forcibly taken from the village by Orochimaru's subordinates. The Leaf would still chase after them, and Sasuke himself would probably still want to see whether the Snake Master could teach him something more, or at least explain the curse mark that was slowly consuming him. Because of that, the events would initially unfold in a similar way. However, this time Itachi would observe everything from a safe distance. He would allow Sasuke to lead him straight to Orochimaru's hideout, and that's where things changed drastically. Orochimaru was incredibly dangerous, not because of raw strength, but because of his mind. And the information he possessed about the Akatsuki, eliminating him would become a top priority, and logically, Pain himself would be sent to deal with it. Why send anyone weaker and risk such an important mission? Pain wasn't exactly busy with paperwork, or standing in the rain on a statue all day, and with Orochimaru's arms sealed, his power was severely limited. Now Pain, he would be nothing more than fodder, someone who could be erased in an instant. That would be the most logical move in this situation. Orochimaru and Kabuto would be eliminated on the spot. Sasuke would be spared, and in the end, he would be forced to return to the village. Of course, Orochimaru, with his twisted, Horcrux-like methods of survival, would still have a chance to return someday, but from that moment on, Sasuke would begin asking more and more questions, and those questions, along with the need to find real answers, would become his new motivation for the next several years. That Sasuke would train relentlessly in the Leaf Village under Kakashi's Sharingan Eye. I believe that training under Kakashi could have been even more effective. Then learning from Orochimaru, Orochimaru was preparing Sasuke, mainly to use snake techniques and to become a suitable vessel. Kakashi, on the other hand, would focus on control, experience, and true shinobi fundamentals. Sasuke's Sharingan would naturally grow stronger because he would be training with someone who actually possessed the Mankekyo, not someone who merely dreamed of obtaining it. This version of Sasuke grows into a completely different person, a shinobi raised among his friends in the village, with real bonds, with human connections, with Team 7 still shaping who he becomes. And inside his mind, the doubts about Itachi would only continue to grow. Why? Because Sasuke would slowly begin to understand how the world of shinobi truly works. War, politics, villages, sacrifices. And as the situation in the world becomes more tense, as the Akatsuki begin to move more boldly, that would be the signal for Itachi to finally act. Soon Jiraiya dies. The Leaf Village becomes a target. At this point, we already know almost everything about the Akatsuki, and this is also the moment when Itachi originally dies in his fight with Sasuke because of his illness. So it's easy to conclude that by now, spying on the Akatsuki would no longer be enough. Staying inside their ranks would start working against him. So ask yourself this, why would Itachi allow Pain Pain to invade the village to slaughter people he once tried to protect, even at the cost of his own clan. Why would he let Pain move closer to achieving the very goal Itachi joined the Akatsuki to prevent? The answer is simple. This is the moment when Itachi betrays them and helps the Leaf Village. I assume that even during Pain's assault, Itachi would already foresee what was about to happen. The consequences wouldn't be hard to predict, so somehow he would get to Sasuke, whether Sasuke was on a mission outside the village or still inside the Leaf, disguised if necessary just to talk to him. And let's be clear about one thing, this Sasuke is not the same broken child, mentally tortured by his brother who would scream and charge blindly at him in the middle of the village. This is a more mature Sasuke, raised in a village that had time to heal, surrounded by normal people without an overwhelming obsession with revenge. Vengeance is no longer the first thing on his mind. What he wants more than anything now are answers, and at this point that nothing is simpler than the same conversation Itachi once had, right before his death, showing Sasuke the truth, revealing the past through the Sharingan. Sasuke's first reaction wouldn't be relief, it would be rage. Rage toward the village, toward Danzo, toward Hiruzen, toward the entire Council of Elders. I highly doubt he would be able to accept what they did to his clan, or to his brother. But at that moment, Pain enters the battlefield, and we need to remember one crucial thing. Itachi still has to remain anonymous. In this specific situation, his identity cannot be revealed because knowing human nature, Sasuke, as a member of a clan that once planned a coup, would be ostracized. The hatred of the people would shift toward the last surviving Uchiha, so Itachi fighting under a transformation jutsu or wearing a mask would not be a problem at all. This would be the heart of the massacre. There would be no time for suspicion, and that leads us to something incredible, a battle where Sasuke fights side by side with his brother against several of Pain's bodies, a fight that would be unbelievably difficult. In the end, it's even a healthy Itachi wouldn't be able to defeat a battle-hardened Rinnegan wielder like Nagato Uzumaki on his own. As a result, the village would still be destroyed, just like in the original timeline, and this would be the perfect moment for Sasuke to awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan, the village he grew up in, the place he formed bonds with, the people he called friends, they would die, and Kakashi as well. His longtime mentor, someone Sasuke had slowly begun to see as a father figure, Naruto too. Looking at this purely from a narrative perspective and from Sasuke's personal journey, this awakening would feel completely natural. Then Naruto arrives on the battlefield. The fight begins, fighting side by side, and eventually the defeating Pain would only be a matter of time. After everything is over, Itachi would fade back into the shadows. There's no chance he could remain in the village. He would stay on the outskirts, operating alone. It's very possible that he would even hunt down his former Akatsuki partner, Kisame. After all, Kisame would remain a massive threat to the Leaf. From there, Itachi would slowly begin acting against Tobi, doing as much as he possibly could on his own, because the life of a healthy Itachi Uchiha would be far more difficult and far more complicated than anyone might expect. Itachi would have to keep everything under control, literally everything. For example, Danzo, who would surely begin stirring chaos in the village again while Tsunade lay unconscious, and on top of that, Sasuke himself, making sure he wouldn't lose control. After learning the truth, and after the fresh awakening of his Mangekyo Sharingan, a power that very often destroys the mind of its user. Because of that, I believe the next logical and most important step would be for Itachi to find Konan and convince her either to destroy the Rinnegan or to help him confront Obito. This is the single most decisive moment in the entire history of this world, the moment that defines what a healthy Itachi would choose to do. And here, it becomes extremely difficult to predict what happens next because everything depends on one small event. If Itachi manages to convince Konan to come to her senses and destroy the Rinnegan, then the world could be stabilized. At least for a while, Zetsu would be forced to scheme further, manipulating events from the shadows. He would likely try to awaken those eyes in Obito again, and at the same time, attempt to twist Sasuke's mind, pulling him to his side. If the Rinnegan isn't destroyed and Obito is confronted and defeated, then Zetsu's task actually becomes easier. He would simply look for someone else capable of wielding the Rinnegan in the future, and I believe he would eventually succeed. If Konan and Itachi managed to resist Obito, forcing him to retreat, Zetsu would still reach that point sooner or later. And if, for some reason, both of them were killed, whether by Obito himself, by Zetsu joining the fight, or even by Kisame, then the story would unfold in a very similar way, because in the end, the war is dictated by one thing alone. Zetsu will always find a way to do what he was meant to do. Sooner or later, Zetsu would inevitably reach Sasuke and Naruto. So to sum everything up, a healthy Itachi could truly change a lot. Most importantly, he would completely change his reckless, broken plan involving Sasuke. He would raise him to be far more emotionally stable, and in the future, he could even train him outside the village. He could leave the Mangekyo Sharingan to Sasuke after his own eyes eventually lost their light. Most likely, he would never abandon the Leaf Village when Pain attacked, and after that, everything would depend on single events that we simply cannot fully predict. Let me know in the comments, what do you think a healthy Itachi would have done? How do you think his story would have ended if illness had never caught up to him? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. See you soon.